What's up, everybody? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. This is episode 10 of Movie Swap. And we got a couple of interesting movies to talk about. So I'm sure we're going to have a good conversation. And the person I'm going to have that conversation with is none other than Walter from Walter Jonesing, or Walter Jonesing for Movies, if we want to lengthen it out. And here he is. What's going on, Mr. Walter?
Hello, hello. How's it going, Dale?
Going pretty good. Going pretty good. So, my first question to you is I'm going to go back a few months, Walter. And this is how I
All right.
really became aware of you. So, I had seen your name in a few chats, but what really brought me to your attention, or brought you to my attention, I should say, is after another Blue Tuber had done a challenge, and then you issued a challenge. Huck had done some challenges, and then you issued a challenge, and you actually mentioned me by name, called me out. I said, "Man, I got to do this challenge." So go ahead and let the people know how that came to be, how that whole challenge came to be that had us do.
Okay, sure. So as you said, Huck had done it was the A to Z movie challenge is what Huck
Right.
had done. And I was like, that's a great idea. So I said, well, I'd like to, what is it? Imitation is the best form of flattery, right? So I thought that I would do if you could only take 10 Criterion films with you on a desert island, what would you take? And I called out a few people.
Yes, you did.
But,
You did call out a few people.
And only a few answered that call back. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And yeah, and I just kind of took 10 out of my list that I thought was great and asked the Bluetooth community at large to do the same. And somebody did. And somebody said you were and you didn't. So I'm waiting for those still.
Okay. Maybe they'll trickle in. We never know.
Yeah, but who knows?
Who knows? Last week, you and I had a conversation on your channel. And you do a lot of you've had a couple of great interviews. I'm hoping I'm one. The other was with Celeste de la Cabra.
Yep.
And yeah, that was a great conversation. How did that come about?
I just reached out to Celeste, and I was like, I love what Celeste does on the channel. And I was like, I have to talk to Celeste. And I just reached out and we made it happen. So I thought, well, let's try this again. I'd reached out to you and you were like, sure, let's do it. And I'm like, cool. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun chat.
Yeah, it was. Hopefully you get a few more people over there. So again, reach out to some more folks.
I reached out to someone. So I still gotta reach out again, but I have a few people down the pipeline I'm hoping to get on there.
Okay, cool. And for me personally as a viewer, I tend to like the more intimate conversations that one-on-one between people when they're talking about movies. The big streams are fun, and I love doing those too. But I get more out of listening to two people share opinions back and forth, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm the same way. I think some of it gets lost in the shuffle on the big streams. Not that they're terrible; they're great. Because everyone's talking movies, right? That's what we're doing this for.
Exactly right.
But yeah, the intimate one-on-one, I think, is for me personally a little bit better.
Yeah, like I said, I get more out of it that way. Let's take a quick look, see who is here in the chat with us, who is hanging out with us tonight, at least at this early part. That's just me. Why did I click that? There's one hanging out with us. KB, what's going on, my brother?
What's up, KB?
What's up, party people? Here to hang out for a few. What's good, Mr. Jones?
Everything's good, my friend.
All right. So thanks for hanging out while you can, KB, and enjoy the rest of the night when it's time for you to go. I really appreciate you being here, but you know that. Culture Trini is in the building. What up?
What's up, Trini? How's it going?
And the man, Tony from Basement Blues, he's here. Hi, guys.
Nice. What's up, Tony?
Now, Tony, I was watching, speaking of the big streams, I was watching Ken, Mid-Level Media, last night. Tony was a little salty last night.
Yeah, I like that.
He had a little spice to him last night.
That's good. With wasabi on it.
Yeah. Holland Oates is here as always. What's going on, Holland?
Hey, Holland. Glad you're here.
We got some
Holland's in all of them, man.
Holland's in all of them. Holland is in all of them. We got some highs back and forth, and then we got Mama Blu-ray is here.
Hey, Mama Blu-ray.
Thank you. She's been a great supporter of the channel. She's here almost every week. Also, thank you so much, Mama Blu-ray, for being here. And like so, we got some more highs going back and forth. I'm looking for some new faces that haven't been here yet tonight. Anyway, and here's one, Sean Zarnecki. What's going on, Sean? As he's heard it now for a couple weeks now, but we just love having Sean around. He's been making himself known in these streams a lot more over the last month or two. He's been a follower or a supporter of the BlueTube community for quite a while. But we're glad that he's stepping out of his comfort zone a little bit, getting out of the shell.
Yeah, it's always good. It's always
always good. All right. So, yep, everybody else is just saying hi to each other. So that clears the runway, so to speak, so we can go ahead and get started. Well, before that, I do want to say, go ahead, if you're here, take the time to smash the like button for me. Take the time to check out Walter's channel. Great channel. Go ahead and give him a sub. And if you like what I'm doing over here, give me a sub. And yes, as always, sub to each other because there are a lot of great content creators in the chat as usual. And now I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Walter. What movie did you have me watch?
So one of my picks of my top 10 criterions, and that is the beautiful yet maddening Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
All right, give me a quick synopsis on that for me, please.
Cool. So it was based on a book by Hunter S. Thompson, and it's kind of his misadventures in Los Angeles with his insane gonzo lawyer, and it's just kind of his exploits of just a drug-fueled party time. It's madness. I've seen this film so much. So I can like replay it in my head almost verbatim now at this point. So, I mean, it's just his exploits. And, Hunter S. Thompson was a writer, and he wrote about what he knew. And that was basically like, just the political climate at the time of the 70s and, his excessive amount of drug use. So it's a very interesting film by Terry Gilliam, I believe is who directed this.
Yes, Terry Gilliam did direct, and excessive drug use might be an understatement still.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so let's get into this first. The first question I have for you is one I've asked a couple of people who've been on the channel, and they've suggested some movies for me. And after watching it, I have to ask this question. What's the plot?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I could tell you honestly, Dale. I think it's just a slice of his life, brought to screen, and it is honestly. I read the book after I watched the movie a bunch, and the book is almost verbatim as the film.
Okay.
So that in of itself, I thought was super interesting. But yeah, I think it's just a slice of a small, minuscule aspect of his life that they said, let's make a movie out of that because it'll put butts in seats.
Okay. Now on that part though, I have to ask, because wasn't this not really a box office success? Is that right? Am I missing something on that?
I'm not sure. Is that another movie? I'm lost here. Sorry.
No. Fear and Loathing, I thought was not really a box office success, but found success a little bit later on.
Oh, yeah, from when it was first written or whatever, or you mean when the film
not the book, the movie?
Okay, yeah, it probably was not when it first came out. It was probably under the radar, and it probably gained more of a cult following as the years went on.
Yeah, I think that's what I read. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I read. So early on in the movie, well, the first thing that happens really we're introduced to Johnny Depp plays the main character. He's our lead character. He plays a guy named Raoul Duke, which, from everything I've heard, is really just a stand-in for the real Hunter S. Thompson, who was a writer and journalist and wrote the book that the movie's based on. He and his attorney, from everything Dr. Gonzo, I guess we're calling him.
Yeah, Dr. Gonzo. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're kind of riding along the highway, and Johnny Depp or Raoul Duke is driving, and he's in the midst of a serious high. He's seeing bats all over the sky, and the guy on the passenger side, Dr. Gonzo, is his attorney, played by Benicio del Toro. And he's pretty much almost the opposite. He's like in a stupor on the other in the passenger side.
Oh yeah, and that first scene when they're driving through the desert, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of it in my head and I'm laughing.
Yeah, and then we get to see Raoul open up the trunk, or Duke. I'll call him Duke because that's usually what they call him in the movie. So Duke goes and opens up the trunk, and he's got so many drugs in there. He gives a rundown, a listing of all he thinks he has, including mescaline, acid. He's got some ether, which really blew my mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he has it's a laundry list of drugs that he talks about in that scene. And cocaine, LSD, nitrates.
Yeah.
All two cases of Budweiser
to go with it, right? Like to wash it down, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's just water at that point. I mean, so yeah, they are locked and loaded for this trip.
You tell, and even he says, he's like, we don't really need all this for this trip, but kind of like a just in case kind of thing.
Yeah. But I think as you see through the movie, they probably did need it.
They go through some stuff. So
they sure do.
Yep. Now, one of the things that happens right after that is they pick up a hitchhiker, and this is where I kind of had to pay a little more close attention, because the hitchhiker is played by Tobey Maguire. So and he's got stringy, thinning blonde hair, but it's long and it's weird. It's kind of weird looking on him because you're used to seeing him a certain way all through these years, at least me. And of course, I've never seen this movie before, so I recognize the face instantly. But with the hair, I was like, "Oh, that's an odd look." But he is the first one of, I don't know how many cameos.
There's a few.
There are quite a few cameos in this movie.
Yeah.
So, and now, but this scene is interesting because of what happens in the scene with Tobey Maguire's character, and with Duke. He's kind of going through his thing. He's trying to think through it all in his head. I'm not sure how good a job he's doing that. He's
doing a terrible job.
Terrible job of that. And by this time, he's relinquished the wheel. He's given it up to Dr. Gonzo. If you could remember back to your first time, or even now, I know you've seen it a lot of times. What about this scene? What is it about this scene that strikes you, or how do you feel about this particular scene?
So I think the scene is great. First of all, I love the camera work in this. Like when they stop to pick up Tobey Maguire as the hitchhiker, it's like this close-up shot of the car stopping on the side of the probably outside of Barstow, I think they are in California. So it's just this desert, and it just kind of sets that mood. It's this tight shot, and then it comes in, and he hops in the car, and he's not sure, like, because they look freakish to him. He probably looks a little freakish to them. Mm-hmm. Duke is having this inner monologue, sort of inside his head, sort of not. And he doesn't know if this hitchhiking kid, who is fairly innocent, is like, what's his purpose? Why is he here? What's he doing with us? And the paranoia level of Raoul Duke at this point is like through the roof already, and we're just into the movie basically. I loved it. The fact that he hops in the back and he like puts his arm around him like he's like a long lost friend almost, and he's like, You want some beer? You want some ether? Right? And he's like,
Right.
what? He's like, never mind. Right? So it starts off this kind of like cavalcade of craziness. Like you're like, okay, we're in for something pretty intense here, and it ramps up more and more. I love it. I love this. I love the entire movie. So let me just start with that, right? You know?
Right.
So, and then his Dr. Gonzo pulls out that giant. What is he called? The Marlin Spike, I think he calls it, which
I
is like
think so.
a 45 or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, at this point, I think they're pulled over and they're kind of wigging out. So, but yeah, and then McGuire jumps out of there. It's like, don't worry about the ride, fellas, and he's gone down the highway. So,
let me tell you about this scene for me. I'm
Okay.
watching this scene, and this kind of sets up how I feel about the characters throughout the movie for me. So they pick up, like it's Tobey Maguire, and with Depp going through his inner monologue. So yes, his paranoia is through the roof, and he's trying to make this kid feel comfortable, but doing terribly at that. And of course, like Dr. Gonzo's over there, eventually he pulls off the gun. First off, the car is speeding down the road, and that's when he decides he's gonna hop over the seat into the back seat. Not the safest thing. So I'm already now, it's like, okay, these characters are definitely, obviously not afraid to take any kind of chances. But the way it made me feel about them is that when I was terrified for Tobey Maguire's character, and I was like, okay, so Depp's character, Duke, he's scared something's gonna happen. And I'm scared that Dr. Gonzo is gonna do it, whatever it is that happens.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how I went through the rest of the movie, feeling about this character, and that pretty much stayed the same all the way through the movie. It was always, okay, whatever terrible is going to happen, that's the guy that's going to do it.
Yeah, that's I think that's proven, as late as the movie runtime runs on.
Right. So we get a phone call when they get to they flash back, I guess, to 24 hours earlier, and to let us know why they're on the road going to Vegas. And he gets this phone call, so he's got to go to Vegas to cover this big motorcycle race. And we get to Vegas, and then everything starts kicking in even more, even harder. And you want to tell us about him checking into the hotel?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I think on the way to Vegas, it's still the highway scene. It's right before they get to the hotel. He takes half a tab of the Sunshine LSD, which doesn't seem like a good idea, but you kind of got to roll with that, I guess. And they get to the inside the lobby out of the elevator, and he's like gripping his typewriter like it's his baby, which it is. I mean, he's a writer, and you can hear a conversation on the phone. And this is when the visuals start to kick in with the LSD about someone cutting out people's adrenaline glands.
Yeah.
And they call it adrenochrome, which I think is a real thing, but don't quote me on that, guys. All right.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Look up, Google's your friend. So he hears this, and these visuals start to kick in, and he's profusely sweating, I believe. And they get to the front of the counter, and the lady's asking for like for the reservation. And at that point, her head morphs into, I believe, a lizard or a dinosaur head.
Yeah, and even before that, I mean, her face just starts like expanding and contracting. At least to his vision, it's expanding and contracting, and then she eventually morphs full on into something.
and she asked for the reservation, and he's freaking out again, and he says something like, "What? We haven't done anything yet." Like he's already guilty of the crime that hasn't happened.
Right.
And his lawyer steps in, who's on the acid as well, but very much more in control, right? And they get through that. And that I don't know, you're probably familiar with who that was at the ticket counter, the actress.
I'm trying to think. I'm picturing her face now, but go ahead. Let me in.
I can't think of her name, her actual name, but it's she played Mona, who was the mother in Who's the Boss.
Who's the Boss? Yes.
Yeah. So that was another cameo, right?
Yes.
And you know, the rest of the scenes kind of going fuzzy. I think after that they go into the bar. They'll be
they eventually get to the bar.
Yes.
And well, flashback. Let me go back for a second to the flashback scene. There was another cameo there. The waiter. Do you remember the waiter?
Yeah, the little person, right?
Yes.
Waiter that brings the phone. I don't know who that is. I've never looked that up.
That is Vern Troy. I think his last name is Troy.
Oh yeah.
The Austin Powers movies.
Wow, I did not realize that was him. I've watched this movie so many times. That's crazy.
Yeah. As soon as I saw his face, I was like, "Hey, Mini-Me! There's Mini-Me!"
Right? Yeah. Nice.
So, but yeah, then eventually we get a scene where, you know, he's looking around and everybody is basically it turns into a lizard orgy at some
right.
point.
Yeah.
And so let me give you a little background on me watching this movie, on how I watched this movie.
Okay.
I watched this movie 2.5 times.
Okay.
So here's the first time I put it on, it was kind of late. Now, so my fault for putting it on kind of late. So I'm dozing off watching the movie. And if anyone out there is familiar with the movie, like I know you are, it already plays like a fever dream. So I'm kind of going in and out of consciousness, and something just bananas is on the screen every time I look up. So when it was over, eventually, I'm like, okay, did I dream that? Or is that what happens?
Right.
So another night went by and I watched it again. And then after that, I was like, okay, what did I just watch? And then I watched it another time after that. And I'll talk more about that when we get to my overall thoughts. But to move on with the movie, though, we eventually get basically it's for me, it's a series of episodes more than a narrative that flows coherently. It's definitely not coherent. But it's really episodic. It's, you know, this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then that happens, and they don't really seem to have much of a connective tissue other than these guys are going through a series of trips. So in that sense, if you can remember one of your earlier viewings, the first time, how did those scenes kind of hit you?
Well, I might have been having some libations the first time I saw it.
Fair
some
enough.
Adult beverages or multiple adult beverages. So I might have been in the perfect frame of mind to watch it the very first time. I had a really good friend, and he turned me on to the film. I'd never seen it. And he was one of those, you know, back 20 years ago. And he'd come over, him and his girlfriend, he'd come over every day. And we watched this movie every single day. So I watched it like 90 times in a row over 3 months.
Good Lord.
It was just a thing. Like, let's put it on. This is what we do. And, you know, and that's how I can just remember it, just thinking of it, you know, because I just saw it so much. And then I didn't watch it for 20 years.
Okay.
Because I didn't feel I had to, right? I'd seen it so much.
Yeah, you've seen it that many times.
So, you know, that was my first impression with the film. I was like, well, this is great. I like Gilliam's work. He's done other great stuff like Brazil, which is kind of a weird mind-bending thing. And, you know,
Very.
You know, the Monty Python stuff, I think he's done 1 or 2 of those.
I know he did Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And
Maybe
he did another one. I'm not sure which one, though.
Maybe Life of Brian, but I'm not sure.
Maybe, but I'm not sure. And he did 12 Monkeys.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he has some weird ones.
Yes, he's got some interesting movies out there for sure. And he is since we're gonna go ahead and we're talking about Terry Gilliam, I'm gonna say this for me. I thought Johnny Depp's performance was maybe a little too cartoonish for my taste, but
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was like Jack
was over the
Sparrow
top.
on extra drugs,
Right.
and then Benicio del Toro I thought was better. I thought he was great, but I thought the real star of the movie was Terry Gilliam and his cinematographer, because of the shots that you mentioned, a lot of Dutch angles and odd close ups and just and the crazy visuals of the movie. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. The visuals in there is top notch. The interesting thing about Depp is that he spent time with Hunter S. Thompson before he did the film.
Mm-hmm.
He spent months with him, and they like partied together and like just he got to see the slice of Hunter S. Thompson, and Thompson even said he's like this. It looked like me, like that was me on the film. So
Okay.
I loved everyone's performance. I can't, I'm gonna just fanboy all over this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I don't think that was bad. It's just that at some point it was like it's like you're doing a little too much. But some especially lately. I've had that with a lot of Johnny Depp performances lately. So it might be something I'm predisposed to look for with his work. So maybe that's a me thing.
yeah, well, no, his later performances were pretty over the top. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
Especially the pirate movies. I mean, not to go off on a tangent here, but I thought the Jack Sparrow character was a little much.
Yeah, yeah, he's a lot of much.
Right?
He's a lot of much, and it doesn't help that. Again, I know we're supposed to be talking about Fear and Loathing, but the pirate movies, they just start going downhill for me. I mean, 1 was great, 2 was
Right.
pretty good, and then after that, it's like, oh, this is a bunch of trash. After 3 for me, personally.
Yeah. I mean, I try and find the good in all movies, right? Unless they're just abysmal. But yeah, I agree. The first one was the best pirate movie. Just on
Yeah.
in here.
Quick side note or quick story about I think it was either the 3rd or the 4th. We watched it at home. I haven't been to the theater to see any of the Pirates movies. I saw them all at home. And the third, I think it was the 3rd one. So myself, my wife, and my son at the time, he was really young. So we all watched it. And we're starting to watch it. And this is, I think, at that time was the longest of the Pirates movies. It was way over 2 hours. And about hour 45, 2 hours in, we're watching it. And my son, he turns to me. He's like, Daddy, what is this about? Which brings me back to Fear and Loathing. I think that's a nice segue. I'm gonna
nice,
call it that, even if it's
I like
not.
that. That was good.
But for Fear and Loathing, so when we're talking about what is it about, after I watched this movie multiple times, then I started scouring the internet for other people's opinions on this movie to help me figure out if I was missing something or misunderstood something. And one of the things that kept coming up was that this movie was an examination of the American dream. That's several different people's reviews kind of mentioned this. Do you get any of that out of that, or could you speak any towards that at all?
Yeah, more like an American nightmare, I think, right? Like,
okay. Yeah, at parts, yes.
Yeah, maybe as a journalist in the 70s, when this took place, it might have been the dream. But there's not a lot of redeeming qualities with either Duke or Gonzo in this film.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily get that, but that's just me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw one or two more out there for you, but
Okay.
before I do that, I'm just gonna check in on the chat, see if anybody's talking about Fear and Loathing. I'm sure somebody has seen this movie.
Let's
I
hope.
do want to check in with my man Bob here. Bob is checked in. Says, hey, everyone, hit that like button. Should be 6 likes right now because we had 6 people at the time. And he says, hey to us both. We're up to 8 right now. So yeah, I'm
Sweet.
hoping for 8 likes
Hey,
out of
Bob.
you guys.
Oh,
Bob
geez.
is
That printer's going off here.
instrumental in helping me get to over 200 subs, and I'll talk about that at the end of the stream. But I was getting close, and he implored some people on Instagram to check me out and give me some subs, and that did help. So I really appreciate that, Mr. Bob. And he's got a great video out with him and his dad that came out, I believe, early today or late last night, one or the other. And Mega Mike, the movie man, is here. What's going on, Mike?
How's it going, Mike?
Almost wore my Blockbuster shirt tonight, but couldn't quite get my hands on it quick enough. So maybe next time, or if I get Mike on here, I'll have to wear mine. And of course, we got the doubles are here. Mika and Kira, they're saying hi to everyone.
Hello, ladies.
They are also very big supporters of the channel. KB says, I can imagine what happened to Dell. It's not exactly a linear narrative movie. No, it is not. It is not a linear narrative. It happens. Linear is not something that is part of that happening, though.
Yeah, 100%. I apologize, Dale. Someone's printing something out, and I'm right next to the printer. So if that crazy sound is going on, apologize there.
Hey, life happens.
Right.
Life happens. Holland says, yeah, I watched this a while back. I don't remember anything. Got to revisit it. Yeah, for me, it's going to be, it's one that's been sitting with me, obviously, because I've, put a lot of time into this movie over the last week and a half. So right now it's pretty clear. It's going to be interesting to see if in the next couple of weeks that if it still sticks with me the way it is now. And the double Sakira has seen this one, but I haven't. The description has me intrigued. Yeah, it is definitely an interesting fever dream of a movie. That is for sure. All right, so let's go back to some themes that I uncovered or saw a little bit. So, well, one, let's go back to the American Dream thing. One of the things people were saying was that basically is a guy getting to live out his wildest fantasies and do whatever it is he wants to do and still be successful, make a living. And that is a part of the American Dream. And then another part of that, another theme that I came across was that this movie was also taking a look at since it takes place in 1971, that it is the death of 60s idealism. And you can see that in the way that the younger folks are such as Depp and Del Toro, who not really young in the movie, but they're still part of that younger generation. Everything is exciting and they're having fun. This is not one of those movies. This is not Requiem for a Dream. This is not trying to make you feel bad about drug use. They're just going through life, having a good time, even though they're worried about what the establishment is thinking or doing. And then the older people in the movie represent the establishment and how grumpy they are and things of that nature. So again, just throwing that out there. I don't know if you've ever pulled any of that out of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, if it took place in 71, I mean, that was right after the Manson murders. It was the death of the 60s and the hippie movement. So so I could see that 100%. And same with the older people in the film, right? They're this bygone era, and stuff is completely different. The sexual revolution is happening, and a lot of stuff that they're just that 50s mind aesthetic is like gone for them. So they have to kind of live in this world with these somewhat shady characters, I might say.
Yeah.
And they don't really, I don't think they know how to navigate. the time they're living in.
Right. And that kind of brings me to what's probably my favorite scene of the movie is there is a second hotel check-in. And they've changed hotels. Well, Dr. Gonzo has pretty much taken off without telling without telling Mr. Duke. And Duke, as paranoid as he is, he's thinking, well, somebody's got to pay for this room, and I don't have the money, so I got to get the hell out of here. And bada boom, bada bing, things happen, and he winds up checking into another hotel where Dr. Gonzo is. But when he's checking in, there is a big anti-drug convention, and here he is, not only with a suitcase full of drugs, but he's got cocaine on his nose as he's checking in. So I'm sure you got a kick out of this scene. So,
100%.
Tell me what was going through your mind, or what goes through your mind when you watch this scene.
Okay, so the scene's great on so many levels. So he gets that second hotel, and you're right. He has this briefcase, and there's this great shot where everyone stops and looks at him, right? And it shows like this kind of inside view of the suitcase, like if it was like X-rayed, and it's just full of drugs,
right?
Just full of them, all sorts. And he does have this giant, like, massive amount of powder right here, and he's trying to be really, like, sneaky about it, which he's not. And everyone's just eyeballing, just mad dogging him really hard. So and then they get up to the counter, and then that beautiful exchange happens with the police officer and the attendant, the hotel attendant.
Right.
Comedy gold, I thought.
It was, and that's, like I said, it was my favorite scene in the movie, especially when you factor in that, yes, here's this police officer, and going back to the things you were saying about the older people in the movie not really being able to navigate the world that they're living in, because it's changing and the sexual revolution is happening, and here's this much. We're not told outright, but we're supposed to assume, at least from my viewing, we're supposed to assume that this character is a gay man. And here's this pretty straight-laced police officer, and that pulling up with this briefcase full of drugs. His entire world is coming apart, and he is just unhinged when he's talking to the guy behind the counter.
Yeah, he turns to a beautiful shade of lobster as he's just screaming at this hotel attendant, and his wife begins to cry, and he's like, and all this rigmarole's going on, and Duke's just watching this whole thing transpire, maybe consciously, maybe not, right at this point. And the beautiful comeback from some Spin, I think his name is in the scene, the character name. He just takes it all kind of on the chin, but Duke has that line where it's like, well, this is what he's really saying, and then it goes off on the guy,
right?
And
right.
It was just that's a chef kiss on that one. It was beautiful. I love that scene. It is a great scene.
It is a great scene, and it's a very interesting choice of words that you used when you said kiss. Because we get another scene. And at this point, I can't remember if this was before that or after that. I think it was before, when Depp was fleeing the first hotel. Yes, it's before that. So Depp is fleeing the first hotel, and he's driving down the highway again, and there is a police officer pursuing him, and police officer pulls him over, and first he tells us why you shouldn't pull over immediately, which was pretty good. And then he eventually pulls over, and the cop gives him big speech, gives him a choice, ultimatum. And of course, at the end, not of course, but at the end, he asks him for a kiss. And I bring up this scene because again, in my looking around at other people's reviews on this one, some people have said that this scene was imagined by Duke. I didn't get that. Does that make any sense to you, or no?
I think the scene was firmly rooted in reality. I mean, as much as it can be in this film, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't get that. I think like that. I mean, maybe it didn't happen, right? Because he's really high on drugs at this point, like multiple drugs.
Yeah.
So maybe it was an imagination or a fever dream. But that scene is uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable. Like the whole exchange between the two, and yeah, yeah, it was pretty. It wasn't to me. It wasn't the most heaviest scene in the film because I'm pretty sure we're gonna get to that. But it was up there. That was probably the third heaviest scene for me, I think.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go there. What is the heaviest scene in your opinion?
Okay, so this it was in the book and it was in the movie, and for me it just brings the. I'm not saying like I'm not saying that it's a feel good movie, right?
Right.
But there's this kind of like a jovialness. I'm not sure if I'm using the word correctly. I mean, they're having a good time, and all of a sudden they get to the diner scene, and that diner scene just it bums me out every time I see it. It's just too much. How much for the lemon meringue pie? How much for the pie? How much for and then it gets worse and worse and worse, and it's just like I wish they would have taken that out. But
Okay.
that for me personally, that later scene is just it's just too much. The
Okay.
courtroom fever dream scene is kind of intense too, but the diner scene was like that's firmly rooted. Everyone's not having a good time, so yeah, that was a rough one for me.
Okay. Now, for me, I actually have a different scene that made me a little more uncomfortable. This is after the second hotel check-in. Uh, Duke goes up to Dr. Gonzo's room, and he's got a young girl played by Christina Ricci, by the way, another cameo
Yep,
there.
very young
And
Christina Ricci.
yeah, yeah, and okay.
That seems pretty heavy too. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know exactly how old she is, and their relationship with one another, aside from age difference, just their interactions are really odd and almost master slave kind of deal. Um, and she's obviously, she's just as high as he is, so her actions are just way out there. And for me, that was the heaviest scene because I was like, okay,
Like,
how did this come about? Where what is going on here?
right? Yeah. I don't know if she's an underage girl in this. I don't think they really go into the age,
They
but I
they
believe
they don't just from the
right.
look, just from her look, I'm like, okay, how old is she? And but go ahead. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But I believe that Gonzo gives her some LSD,
Hmm.
and he's like dressed in the linens like Jesus, right? So
Yeah.
he's like so she's in some kind of like Messiah fever because I believe she's religious in this, and the whole Barbara Streisand thing with the paintings and whatnot,
Hmm.
and the whole interaction between the two is just it's creepy, and Duke picks up on that. That's like the one redeeming part of Duke in the whole film because he's like this is wrong, man. You're like you need to get her out of here. This is
Right.
what's wrong with you, which is
Right.
funny for him to say that I think with
It
what he does.
it was, but through the movie, you can see that there were certain lines that he wouldn't cross. That was one, and then the whole thing with the radio in the bathtub, that was another.
Yeah, yeah,
That was kind of wild.
that was a pretty gruesome scene. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and that was another heavy scene because I'm like, wait, is he gonna do it?
Right.
What's happening?
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
that was pretty rough watching those scenes. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get ready to put this movie to bed. So before I do, I'm gonna talk about my. Oh well, before I do that, are there anything about the movie that you wanted to talk about that I didn't touch on?
Okay, there's one scene, because I mean, with the whole point on the dream, not the dream, but it's a set of sequences. There's one where he's actually writing up the article, and he has this beautiful line, and I'm probably gonna massacre it, but he's like, you can, if you look out just far enough, because he's in Vegas while he's writing this, you
Right.
can see the high watermark of where the waves like crash and roll back, and he's talking about the California coast, like where his home is. And I thought that was like such a poignant, like almost tender, loving scene in the midst of like this insanity. Because that whole shot that happens is like this. It looks like it comes from outside, like from a vent in the ceiling, and the camera like is like slowly rotating around,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just this almost just poetic, beautiful. You know, that's a journalist, and he's writing, and he's in his moment, and it was beautiful to me. And I was like, wow, that's, you know, amidst all the madness and craziness of this film, there's this small glimmer of sanity, and he gets it on the page, and like that's you know, it's immortalized, you
Yeah.
know, in print. So I thought that scene was just like really well done. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and the rest, you know, is holy crap,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what's happening? You know, I said that a lot when I first saw it. I'm like, wow, what is happening? What is happening? This is great, but man, what is happening? So, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so let's get into my overall thoughts on it. And yeah, what is happening? That was my thought the whole time I'm watching it. And you know, I was trying to suss out a point. Was there a point to the movie? And that's what
mm,
led me to going around doing some other, doing some other research, so to speak, and seeing if there was something that I didn't catch. Um,
yeah.
so
Sorry, go ahead.
well, just watching it. So, like I said, this is all going on, and watching other people. It's really actually helped my view on the movie. It's helped my opinion of the movie because after the first watch, I was like, okay, this seems really pointless. Yeah, I got it. It's visually arresting. It's hard to take your eyes off of it because there's something happening all the time with the visuals, and it's just wow. This shot happens and then that happens, and it's hard to look away. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere a lot, other than oh, they're on a trip, and by the end, it's a miracle that he got anything written, let alone something as poignant as what you were talking about. Um, so looking at other people's things helped me kind of dive a little bit deeper on my own in my own head on the movie and come up with some things, and it made it better for me. It made it better for me because when I first watched it, I was like, "Oh, Walter's not gonna like me for this."
No, man, it's you know, it's beautiful having different points of view on films. That's what this is all about, right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
great.
that's definitely what it's all about. So my view of the movie has enhanced. I do like it better now because I can get more out of it, and it's a movie that I can say, okay, maybe I'll revisit this movie and even get more because now I have some basis, some foundation of things to look for. Uh, so I will say that yes, at this point, I do like the movie, but I'm like on the fence, and it's one that will, if multiple viewings will probably help. More viewings will probably help that. Um, but it's one that's taken me some work to get through. And with Terry Gilliam, I mean that's a pretty constant thing with a lot of his movies. And you mentioned Brazil. I'm not a big fan of Brazil. I didn't care for it. It's the same kind of thing. After I watched it, I was like, "What the hell is this?" I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
But I do love 12 Monkeys, 12 Monkeys, and I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Those are both fantastic movies. So that, gives me to would I recommend this movie to someone else? And I would, provided that I know that they're into kind of trippy movies because this is definitely a trippy movie. If you're not into that, no, I'm not gonna recommend it to you because you'll just sit there and be dumbfounded and think that I'm crazy.
Yeah. Ouch. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think you need to know your audience.
Yes.
A little bit. It's like when you play Cards Against Humanity. You better know your audience when you start throwing the game out there, because if you don't, there might be some talking, might be coming to Jesus. And I think this film kind of does that as well. If you don't know the audience, and if they're not really into this kind of strange and unusual film, then they're probably not going to like it, and that's great. That's fine. It's
Right.
that we don't like everything together, right? Yeah, I mean, I personally love the film as I gush about it over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think I just saw it at the right time in my life, and then I watched it over and over again, so it became almost like some kind of weird, I don't know, just a part of my life. We quoted it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was ridiculous. We get a lot of strange looks out in public quoting some of these lines, because there are some really
there are some interesting lines. Most of my favorite lines, I'll be honest, came from Del Toro, especially the "as your attorney, I advise you to do whatever it is," and he's got things like, "I advise you to run a really fast convertible and get some cocaine."
Yeah.
It's like, and for a while I doubted. I'm like, is this guy really an attorney? What is
yeah, like where did he get his license from?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for me, there's so many quotable lines. I can almost just verbatim the whole film. There's a scene where they're inhaling the ether, about to go into Circus, which is a crazy scene in and of itself.
Yeah.
Which also has a very small cameo with Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller.
Yes, it does.
And he huffs the ether, and he thinks he's walking normally, and he's very much not walking normally. He's trying to get into the turnstile.
Goodness, no.
Right. And
for anybody who hasn't seen it, just to help them out, for anybody who hasn't seen it, if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, the Quaalude scene, he's walking like Leonardo DiCaprio was walking in that scene. But go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, no problem. He does the huff, and he's doing this inner monologue, and he says this line, and I'm gonna edit myself a little bit, and he goes, "Dogs F the Pope, no fault of mine." And you if you don't have subtitles on, you're not really going to hear that. And and it's just like and that's just one of the many lines he says is just totally outrageous, totally outlandish. And I think for me, I mean, those are terrible lines of what make the movie for me,
Right. So, all right. So again, just to reiterate my kind of thoughts on the movie, as I first finished the movie, I wasn't really a fan of it. Then kind of doing some digging, because I felt confused, but I didn't want to feel confused. I did a little bit of digging and then rethought the movie in my head. I do like it, appreciate the movie. And it's one I do plan on revisiting, because I think that will help even more. And what I didn't say before is that, I own the movie also. It's one of the reasons why I picked it, because it was easy to watch. I own the movie, but after my first couple of viewings, I was like, okay, this is about to go in the trade-in collection. But after, again, giving it some thought, it's like, no, I'm going to hold on to this, because I'm going to want to watch this again. We're going to get ready to switch over to the other movie. But before we do, we had a couple of people check in. We have Jerry. He was saying, what's up to Holland? Well, he said, what's up to us first? What's going on, Jerry? Thanks for being here. And Benicio, the horror cholo, is here. What's going on, Benicio?
Benicio, how's it going, man?
You are just on time, because we're going to talk a little horror here.
No joke, right?
Yes, we are definitely.
Fear and Loathing is a little horrific, man. I'm just saying.
We are going to talk a little horror. Fear and Loathing is horrific, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
It is horrific as in from two sides of it. If you're on Depp's and Del Toro, but it's particularly if you're on Depp's side, it's like, man, everything seems like it's out to get you. Or if you're not, if you're on the opposite side, it's like, man, these people are among us. What,
Right. Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
happening?
Like, we better get across the way and make sure they don't have guns or knives, because they're going to kill us. Yeah. There's some scary scenes.
Exactly. All right, so let's get into the other movie. Like I said, Vinicio is now here, so I know he's a horror guy. The double feature podcast, the twins are definitely horror fans, and maybe they've seen this one, maybe they haven't. The movie that I recommended for you to watch is The Eyes of My Mother, and before I even tell you what the movie's about, I'm just going to say for me, this was a Dollar Tree pickup, and it's got a nice slip cover on it for all you Dollar Tree haters out there.
Yeah. No steelbook for that one, folks. No steal, no deal, my friends.
There you go. No steal, no deal. All right. So The Eyes of My Mother, we open up with a young girl and her mother. The young girl, I guess she's about 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. Maybe 12, 8 to 12, I'll say. And she's with her mother, and her mother is telling her how back in Portugal, she was actually a surgeon, and she learned how to do surgery by practicing on cows, and that the eye of a cow is very much like the eye of a human. And she performs a procedure. They got the cow head right on the kitchen table when they're doing it. And not to get too caught up in those details, we move forward a few minutes, and a stranger appears, and he's asked to use the restroom, and he turns around and murders the mom. Well, while he's in there doing that, Dad comes home and does something to this guy, and he hurts him pretty bad, drags him out to the barn, and keeps him there. Why? I don't know. Not my choice. It wouldn't have been my choice. But he keeps him there in the barn, so he's not dead. He is alive. And the young lady uses her surgical skills, and we'll get into exactly what she does. But then the movie just progresses from there. We get a time jump after a little while. We get a time jump to when she's an adult. And to go back to that beginning, and they put that cow head on the table. Where are you right then, Walter? Where's your head?
Okay, so interesting story. So I purchased this at a Dollar Tree as well.
There you go.
I hadn't watched yet. Don't even know exactly where it is in my pile of stuff, right? Because I think at that point I wasn't keeping cases. I know. Flame me in the comments, please. I love it. So I was like, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get, even a friend of mine who's big into films. He's like, you got to see Eyes of My Mother. You tell me your thoughts. I said, yeah, okay, I'll get to it. Right. And the pile gets bigger and bigger. And one of the movie, like, that was the one I picked. And so I just watched it. And I started to watch it when I first bought it. And I didn't even get to the point where the door-to-door salesman enters the scene. So a minute in, maybe two, I was just like, I'm not really feeling it. This seems kind of, it's, first of all, it's a black and white film.
Yes, I failed to mention it's black and white, but go ahead.
So, and it's a slow burn. I love slow burns, but usually with black and white films, I fall asleep. Okay. It's just, I'm trying to get better at it. I'm trying to watch older films so I can maybe build up my tolerance, I guess. And so I wish I would have stuck with it back then, because it ramps up immediately. I mean, right off the bat, that scene on the highway with the truck.
Yes.
Because that's the very first scene.
Yes.
Right. And because that where it wraps around later. And that's, I must have missed it when I first saw it, because I was like, when I started to like actively watch it, it was her and the mother in the field talking about the eyes and the surgeon, being the surgeon in Portugal. And then before the guy got there, I probably turned it off. So watching it, I think I watched it about a week ago. And then I watched it again today before I got on here, so it could be really fresh in my mind. And I was like, oh, I should have really kept with this, because it's slow, but like that just impending sense of like dread and what's going to happen next is just, it's ever present in the film, I think. I also noticed, like, on the subsequent viewing, that there's a lot of religious imagery throughout
Yes.
this that I don't think I necessarily noticed the first when I watched it last week. I didn't. I mean, I saw here and there, but like when I watched it again, I was like, oh, it's there, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting point, and I wanted to do some research about it myself. So I'm like, well, first of all, because I thought, well, is this in Portugal? Because they're speaking Portuguese, like 3 different kinds of Portuguese in the film, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. It takes place in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
So that I didn't know. And I think it's probably like maybe the 70s or 80s. They don't really tell you that, I think. But judging by the cars and the television set and this
Right.
and that. So I really thought it was like kind of interesting. And like at that point, my interest, I was in it. I was in it to win it, you know. So and it's just the cinematography was really nice. The score so far, because it's very quiet of a film, like extremely
Yes.
quiet.
Yes.
And I thought everything kind of just ebbed and flowed very well together. So it just, I was there. I was on it. I was going to sit up. I was going to stay awake, get some coffee, you know, and just kind of power through. And I'm glad I did, because it's, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get
so
there.
just for people who haven't seen it, you mentioned a couple of things. I just want to make sure that they understand. One thing you mentioned is it's black and white. And yes, it's black and white, but it is actually a 2016 movie. So it's not a super old movie. It's just shot in black and white. And as far as the time frame, yeah, they never really tell you when it takes place. You just kind of have to guess, I guess. You just kind of have to guess, or just accept that it is whatever time it is and just roll with it. So and for this one, because I'm looking through here, and since I mean there is a little more of a plot to this than Fear and Loathing, and I don't want to quite spoil it. Oh, another thing you mentioned was that it's a slow burn. It is a slow burn at early on, but the whole movie is like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's very short.
Yeah, it's not. So it doesn't take that long.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So it gets going. So now I do want to spoil a little bit. We basically the salesman is kept as a pet, and he's been incapacitated in a serious fashion. And where'd you think this was going after that?
You know, honestly, I wasn't sure. Like, so to go back just a little bit, right? The salesman murders the mom.
Right.
We've established that, right?
Right.
I mean, this is not spoiler free by any regards.
No.
And instead of what normal people, I think, would do, which would be call the police, mm-hmm. right? Get some kind of authority down there. They have the wise decision of putting the mother in the ground, like on the property, which totally, I was like, what? That's weird. That's strange. The movie's strange in general, but that's really strange. And then they basically kidnap this guy after they've violently beat him and then done some other unspeakable acts to him.
Mm-hmm.
And kept him as like just a prisoner, right? I mean, basically. So at this point, I was just like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Or even a pet, maybe.
Yeah. There's this line that he says, and this is early on, and he's like, "Aren't you going to kill me?" Right? Because I think at this point he probably just wants to be off the coil, right? Off the coil. And she's like, "No, you're my best friend," or something to that regard. You're the only friend I've ever had.
Yeah, you're the only friend. Yes. Especially now that mom is gone.
Yeah, especially now that mom has left me. And there's and that's a thing that I think speaks to the film, is that she had to listen to her mother's violent end. Mm-hmm. So that produces serious amounts of trauma that works itself, as we see in this film, out in terrible, horrible ways.
Yes.
and there's definitely a case of abandonment. So I think she's keeping this guy as like, he can't leave me. Like this is mine, and we're going to keep him any way we can, and we're going to feed him and care for him in the most disturbing way a human being could do another human being.
Right. And well, he said something else before well, while he could speak.
Right.
He said something else, and another thing you mentioned was that the movie, there's a lot of Portuguese in the movie and takes place in the Midwest, so you get a decent amount of Portuguese, but you also get a lot of English in the movie for anybody who's also curious about that. But she asks him, why did he do it, and basically, his answer is killing people feels amazing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So eventually we come back to that.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible ways.
Very terrible ways. And again, I'm just gonna I just want to see here what you thought about when we get back to that. And did that shift where you thought the movie was going?
Yeah, at that point on the first viewing, I was like, where is this going? Right? Because some stuff happens in between that point. It's
Right.
serious stuff.
Right.
With her father, who is obviously not the best, judge. Like, he doesn't make the best decisions.
No.
And you see that he also is probably an alcoholic after his wife has been killed, right? Because there's scenes, and he's obviously lost himself in his grief and his violent retribution as well. But yeah, I wasn't I don't know, like the way that her issues, for lack of a better term, manifest after her mother's death and these other things that have happened up to that point. I don't think anything would have surprised me at that point.
Right.
Really. So yeah, but when she tells him, yeah, it's great. It's like, that's what a terrible thing as the last thing you're going to hear.
Exactly. Not that he didn't deserve it.
100%. He totally deserved it. But, maybe not in the lengthy way that it was done. Because it was, there, as you talk, there's a time jump of 10 years, maybe more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's some scenes early when she's a kid. Oh, man.
Yeah.
The rat scene. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's tough. It gets tough. It definitely gets tough. Let's just check in with a couple of people who have talked about it a little bit, not much, but we do have Double Feature Podcast saying we love horror, and yes, we did knew that. And they also said we haven't seen this one, but we have heard of it. I highly encourage you guys to check this one out. And Holland says this one looks super interesting. Writing it down, please do, and let us know what you think of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it is an interesting movie. And you brought up grief, and that is a central theme in this movie. Is grief. One of the themes. There are a few themes that I pick up on in this movie, but grief is one of them. And you mentioned the dad's grief, and to be honest, I hadn't really thought about his grief because I was so hyper focused on our main character. Francisca is her name, by the way. So now that even adds another layer for me because, like I said, I hadn't really thought about his grief. And yeah, he is not a good decision maker, and I think he immediately goes into shock. Is the best way I can describe it.
After his violent outburst, which I think anyone in that situation might do the same thing.
Right.
And it's not like they're a young married couple. They're old in this film.
Yeah.
Or up there. I'm no judge of age myself. I've got the white beard. But yeah, I think his grief just consumes him. And there's a scene after that and she's still a girl at this point, where they're dancing
Mm-hmm.
and they're listening to a song, and it's a beautiful song too. It's like the one beautiful kind of, I wouldn't call it a beautiful moment in and of itself because of the trauma that's happened,
Right.
but it's kind of just this, she's dancing with her dad, she's still a kid, and they're listening to the song, and I think it's a Portuguese type of music called, I think it was Fubo. I'm probably massacring the name,
Mm-hmm.
but it meaned, I think it translated to Sad Destiny, the
Okay.
song. And I think that's kind of like encapsulates the our for lack of a better word, our main protagonist life
Yeah.
from that point onward.
Yeah. It does. Sad Destiny is a great way to talk about her life because, man, she gets into some things.
Yeah.
What's Johnny watching is in the building. What's going on? He says, "Good God, I can't
Johnny?
believe I'm late to Dell's show." It's okay. We had an early start this week. We started at 8, so definitely catch the replay. And just to let you know, we talked about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas earlier. And we're talking about The Eyes of My Mother now. That one's a little more obscure, but it is a horror flick, as you might have been able to tell from us talking. Another thing that I really pick up on in this movie is the idea of mental health and deteriorating mental health, again, with the sense of abandonment that you were talking about, and just not dealing with it. So that, metaphorically, it's like, for all of us, if we're not dealing with our mental health, it just declines over time. So again, I'm not sure if that was something that you had picked up on or not, or if you read that into it or not.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously didn't address anything with anyone, and maybe she was in a position not to. They seem to live out kind of in the wilderness. I mean, there was she says in a later scene with someone else that she's a few towns over, so she's in the Midwest in the '70s, probably very in a rural area. So I don't think she had anyone at that point to talk to, and maybe during that time, there wasn't that kind of that kind of help freely given.
Right. And we definitely get the idea that before the tragedy happens, they lived an isolated life. It didn't really see people too often, and so afterwards, yeah, she didn't really have anybody to go to. And then eventually, after the time jump, after she's an adult, and she eventually ventures out into town, and that's where the movie kind of shifts gears a little bit, or at least maybe not shifts gears, but definitely takes the fork in the road. It picks a fork, a different fork in the road,
right?
And we go down there, and I think we kind of get a little thrown off the scent again on where the movie's actually heading. And was that the case for you? Your first watch through?
No.
Okay.
I felt firmly that whatever was going to happen next was going to be terrible and brutal, and I was 100% correct.
Yes.
Her demeanor and just her overall, I don't know, her overall onus, I guess, of just her. She's a strange duck, right? We can all agree upon that.
Yes.
And she doesn't know how to. You can tell that she didn't. I don't think she ever drove before. Not that she did a terrible job. She got there in one piece.
Right.
But and the way she communicates with this patron at the place that she goes to, I mean, she has a small amount of social skill, but we see that is almost like a ploy to get that person back home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there. What was
no,
question, Dale?
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. We're just talking about the movie shifting gears a little bit, and then it does so again when she actually ventures out another time and gets a ride back to her house with a character, and from there, I don't want to go into details on what happens
Okay.
with that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and that, but it does speak to that the abandonment and not wanting to be alone and not wanting. Uh, she does some pretty heinous things from there. So one of the things that I like about the movie is that it is a villain's story, but not in the sense of when we see a lot of movies now. I mean, think of like the Maleficents and uh, Morbius and Venom, and even where they take a character who we know fundamentally is a villain and they give them their own movie, but try to make them the hero in the story. That doesn't happen here.
She is not an anti-hero.
No, no.
Yeah.
There's
She
no
is.
point where we're supposed to root for her. There's really no point where we're supposed to root for her. But by the same token, at the end, when the end happens, she's still somewhat sympathetic, at least in my mind. Not that I'm again rooting for her,
Right.
but just because of all the things that happen in her life to that point, and I still have some sympathy for her. Did you feel that way, or was she just like, oh no, that's perfect?
Well, no, I didn't feel that way. The trauma that happened to her and that repeatedly happened to her, just on her, like, just looking at her perspective of it, not what she does. It's horrible trauma. It's abandonment issues. Her mother's brutally killed. Her father dies, right? And
Hmm.
at first I was like, oh, she's caring for him, and then I'm like, oh, he's not breathing in the bathtub, kind of thing,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
That scene, and she's still somewhat sympathetic at that point. She's like, "Why did you leave me?" So, her mother left her, her father left her. Um, the door-to-door salesman leaves her.
Hmm.
Uh, the girl in the bar, she leaves. She tries to leave her
Tries, right?
because that's she's like, I'm gonna go, and she's like, don't leave me, don't leave me. So there's that overreaching abandonment issue throughout this film all the way to the end.
Hmm.
So in that regard, I feel sympathetic to her,
Right.
but that does not outweigh the crimes that she has done throughout this film.
So I think we're agreeing. Let me put it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm
we're agreeing.
sympathetic to her, but what she did was terrible on
Yes,
many regards. You know,
yes. It definitely was. But she, like you said, the repeated trauma that she goes through, and you have to remember that this is trauma that's occurring pretty much on a daily basis from that point forward, because she's, you know, her mom is on the property, as you said, buried on the property. Her dad, he's in the house with her uh, for so long,
yeah,
and we got homeboy who was out in the barn forever. So this is a daily thing that she's dealing with, this craziness, for lack of a better term, and so that's where the sympathy comes in. But no, it doesn't outweigh.
yeah. It doesn't outweigh the crimes committed.
Right?
Um, and there's a scene where she like unhooks this the serial killer, right? Because I think he is a serial killer. They
Yeah,
they
yeah.
discuss that because he's like, I've done it before when he could talk, and that's when she asked, well, what? And he's like, it feels great, you know. And then there's that scene where she has sex with him, probably her first sexual encounter, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
which
assuming yes.
which is awful in its own right. I mean, that's especially with you know just yeah, just
Right.
everything. It's bad. And then she goes to kill him, and she like he or she wakes up, he's not there, right? He is you know aimlessly wandering the property, right, due to the trauma that she's done to him.
Right.
And she calmly very calmly.
Very.
He walks past that window and then walks up that hill, and it's this very long shot. I also thought some of the shots were beautiful in this movie.
Yes.
You know, like that scene through the window and these like shots of the barn, just of the barn, not what's inside it. I just like that's. It's like if Norman Rockwell painted it, but maybe he was doing a little too much, too many drugs, right? took the Raoul Duke way on that.
Yeah.
But like she follows him up the hill, and she takes the knife and she's stabbing him and she's hugging him, and that in a way it's psychosexual. I mean, like it's like she's making love to him again, but but killing him.
Right.
And then she says that she's like, "Yep, it's just what you said it was. It's great. I loved it. I loved killing people, basically, right?" And it's that's kind of a poignant scene because at that point she's jumped off the cliff of sanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think you find out what happens to his body afterwards, right? Like I don't think they deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a corpse on the property, just hanging out. Like that's pretty morbid.
I'm trying to think if he ends up in the fridge.
You're right. Because she pulls off his ring and puts it on for a split second, like, "Hey, I'm married." No, just kidding. I forgot about the fridge scene. That was disturbing. Like, was she? Is that how she was surviving? Because there's that glass. Like, is she drinking wine?
Yeah, we
or is
never
it something a little more irony.
We never get any clarity on that.
Right.
And I guess you can infer.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so.
Conclusions.
Yeah, the movie doesn't really, go there as far as that part is concerned, which is interesting that it doesn't, because we really don't know, how she's surviving. How is there any income even? We don't really know.
How are the lights on in that place?
How are the lights on in that place? And the movie doesn't really deal with that, and that's okay for this movie because of what it's trying to accomplish. It is a like I said, it's a villain story, and another. I did want to go back to something you mentioned about when she is actually killing him, when she's killing her first victim. Really, for me that is more terrifying than the way she did it, so calmly and so intimately. Much more terrifying than watching, Michael Myers or Jason, just acting crazy or stalking you and doing whatever they do in those movies. Because those movies are really at the heart of them. They're dark comedies. They're horror movies and they're slasher flicks. But at least to me, I've seen so many slasher flicks. It's like, now they're kind of they're comical in a way, even though I really enjoy them and I have fun with those. Right. But this was different. This was not that. This was stylized in a different way. Whereas those are stylized to, be spectacular in nature as far as the killing goes. This was not.
Not at all. Not at all, man. It was. Yeah, you're right. It was intimate and like it was a close-up shot, and like you see her like smearing like his blood. Smearing his blood on his own back as he's like, as the life is draining out of him, and it's such a tight shot too, like camera wise, and yeah, it was a hard scene to watch.
Yes,
and I've seen some terrible films. When I mean talk about like disturbing cinema, I've seen a lot of them, and it was tough to watch that one. I admit.
Yeah, I agree. Because like I said, something like that. Because I mean, again, to go back to the slasher flicks, I know when I walk out my door, Jason's not there. I know that Michael Myers is not there, and I get what they represent, and something like that could theoretically happen, but it is much more likely that if I'm going to meet my demise violently, it's going to be somebody who I'm close to.
Right. Or possibly a random stranger who looks just like everybody else.
Right. Somebody who looks just like everybody else. That is another way of looking at it also. Exactly. And just to think that you could just bump into this person and then your life changes and ends because you just met this person.
Right.
It's a lot scarier ideal or a lot scarier idea um, for me. So another thing that I kind of jotted this one down, and I'm not really sure how much I believe this one, so I'm just going to throw this one out there.
Okay.
And this was the idea of the patriarchy having a hard time with a woman who is dominant in her own way. And like I said, I just kind of jotted that down. I'm just throwing it out there, see if what you think of that idea.
Um, I I don't know. Because I mean there are, her father, he's not super overbearing. I
No.
don't think he's like, after his wife is murdered, he shuts down. And the serial killer as well. He's he almost needs, well, he needs her, right? I mean, he needs her to survive.
And I think more or less the very ending kind of gave me that idea, not necessarily the whole
Oh, you're talking
movie
about
as a
the
whole.
very end, the very
Yeah.
end few scenes. Okay. Um, yeah, I'd like, well, yeah, I mean, I can see that. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I can see it though. I can see where you get that idea. Like, because like the reality is now coming down on her,
Hmm.
right? After another, what, almost 10 years, because there's a second time jump
Yes,
in
there
the
is a
film.
second time jump.
And this is, and then and this is after she was up on the hill, right? Seeing the fam, so to speak.
Right.
uh yeah, and then there's that scene where it's the finality of everything is coming to a head.
Right.
She's taking all that power, right, and keeping it for herself. Like, she's going to make that final decision,
Hmm.
or she's going to make them make that final decision for her.
Yes, definitely gonna
So
make
so
that decision.
yeah, so in that regard, yeah, 100%, I can
Okay.
see that.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get ready to wrap this up. So I'm gonna give it back to you one more time and just say or just go ahead and ask for your overall thoughts on the movie.
Okay, cool. So I loved it. I love slow burn films, first of all. uh, I also love films that end with questions. Like,
Yes.
I'm that guy that always actually wants to see, like, when Leatherface was running around with the chainsaw at the end of Texas Chainsaw, what happened after that?
What
I
happened
mean, you
after that?
find out later, but still, you know, uh, in films that are just kind of up in the air, you can make your own decisions about what happens. I love. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I don't. Right. Sometimes I want a final answer. And in this one, it's like, well, what happened to that kid? Because the
Hmm.
way that kid was situated, it right, what happened, right? I don't want to spoil that last part, because
Right.
I don't even think we stepped on the kid part, right? We didn't talk about
No,
that at
we
all.
really didn't.
Okay, so gotta leave something, gotta keep checking it out, right?
Yeah.
uh but I loved it. And I'm not a giant fan of black and white movies, like I've said, but I really did love this one. And I'm glad that you turned me on to it, because it was good. Like, I kind of want to see what else she's done, because she's just has, first of all, she kind of has like a weird look about her, like, just aesthetically.
Hmm.
So I kind of want to see what else she's done. I think she was in an episode of Gotham, maybe. I can't remember. I looked on the IMDb page, but I don't remember. So she's been in other stuff. So I definitely want to check out, like, her filmography.
Hmm.
Um, but and whatever, I can't remember the director's name, unfortunately. I don't know if you have it right there.
I do. Nicholas Pesci, I believe is how you say it.
Okay.
And he did the 2019 version of The Grudge.
Don't think I've seen that.
I haven't seen it either,
Okay.
but I know he directed that.
Well, I might have to check it out. I mean, I'm not a giant fan of remakes, especially when it comes to original Japanese horror films.
Right.
I really like those classic ones, Ringu and Ju-on, Tale of Two. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent there.
Go for it.
But so it might be a little bit of a hard sell for me. But I think after seeing this film and seeing what he can do as a director, I will check out the remake of The Grudge. So yeah, I liked it. Again, it's I'll probably put this in like probably a year or 2 year rotation to watch it again, because I got a little bit more out of it on that second viewing right before we came into the stream.
Yeah.
So I didn't catch all the religious overtones in the film the first time. I mean, I kind of saw it, but it really is.
Yes, it's
really there.
It is definitely there. So it's that since you love it, I'm assuming you would recommend it to someone else. But what kind of person?
Okay, so I got a friend that loves the same kind of horror movies I do. So as a matter of fact, I think he recommended it to me as well, like way before. So I mean, yeah, I think I would recommend it for people who want a short view time that also like a stylized horror film that makes you think. So I think they called it intellectual horror, or I think that was one of the descriptors of it.
Yes,
and I would agree with that. I think if you want a mindless slasher, that's great. They're great. They're fun times, as you said. Leatherface, Jason, Freddy, all the greats. But if you want something a little bit more with like meat and bones on it, that has a little bit of character depth and struggle and all that kind of great nuances, I think you'd be, for a picture that was done so recently, you'd be hard pressed to find something else like that. Besides, maybe if I can just make one quick suggestion, another movie suggestion would be A Dark Song.
I haven't seen that one.
Okay, it's interesting and it's a slow burn.
Okay, a dark song.
A Dark Song, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I don't really know if I've even heard that one.
Yeah, it was good. Well, I thought it was good. I mean, it's all objective art and film and all that jazz, as I always say.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely subjective. And it wouldn't be fun if it wasn't. If we all thought the same on the movie, we couldn't even chat about them, because everybody's the same.
Exactly.
Thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and check with the chat just one last time, and we got the double says got 2 new films to add to the watch list. Love the discussion on both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We much appreciate it. And yeah, let us know what you think whenever you see them. I'm very curious. Like I said, I know Kira has seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So Mika, whenever you see it, let us know. And definitely The Eyes of My Mother, because I know you guys are big horror buffs. So I'm really curious on that one. Bob says 100% agreed. Dylan Walters, all subjective. Wouldn't be fun if we all loved the same movies.
Yeah, I mean, we'd all be out of these cool streams and whatnot,
Exactly right. And what's Johnny watching also agrees. So yeah, that's really all we have to say about both of these movies. And Mr. Walter, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. And I'm going to let you promote anything you want to promote. Tell us about your channel. You know how it goes. Go for it.
I've seen it once or twice. What's up? I'm Walter Jones, and I'm jonesing for film discussion, friends. Not only do I do that on my channel, but I do movie reviews, very short ones, because I like everyone else, I feel like we have short attention spans half the time. I do occasional unboxings and all that other is sort of good and plenty. Hopefully doing more one-on-one interviews as well on the channel, so please stay tuned for that. That's about it, Del.
All right. I do have another comment that Double said, yes, we will definitely share our thoughts. So I look forward to that. And we got a couple more people talking about it. What's Johnny watching? Puts Eyes on my list on Hulu. Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Definitely go for that. Bob's Blu-rays, by the way, huge shout out to Dell. Went from 199 to 236 in 2 days. I think you're about to blow up. I hope.
Dang, Dale.
And I don't know if you were here earlier when I mentioned, Bob, that you were instrumental in helping me get that push. So I really appreciate it. And thank you to What's Johnny Watching, who I also recently subscribed to. Another great channel, and he congratulates me, and I say thank you very much. Coming up on this channel, since we're talking about 200 subscribers, next week I'm planning on tentatively scheduled for Monday. I'm going to do a live Q&A and giveaway, as I said I was going to do for when I reach 200 subscribers. So drop by on Monday night and you might win something, or at least learn a little bit more about me, if you care to learn any more about me. And Bob is saying thanks. And on next Tuesday, I will have Derek from Pure Hangout, the man with the handlebar mustache. We're going to talk great movies next week also, or at least one that I think is great and one he thinks is great, and then we'll figure out if we think each other's movies are great. But that's all I have for you on this one. Keep your eyes out for any random videos that may pop up in between that time. And I appreciate everybody who is here. A smaller crowd tonight, but that is quite all right, because I hope that means more people are going to catch the replay. I also hope everyone here is either already subscribed to Walter or going to right after the stream. And I know that some of you left right around 9 o'clock because there's another big stream going on. So if you're still here, I really appreciate it. And I'll probably see you over there, because I will.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I'll probably go and check that stream out myself. And What's Johnny Watching says we need to know more, Del more. So yeah, show up next week and we'll get that great content. Says the twins. Thank you very much. Culture Trinity is out of here. He says later. I say later because I will catch you on the next one, and hopefully that'll